No, no worries. You don't alter. I'll just, I won't talk about myself for 48 hours after this.
Yeah, really. You probably won't want to talk at all.
It's funny, and I've been a much more attentive listener lately because I never want to talk about myself anymore.
Have you got levels, Ron? Do you need it? Are we set? Are we rolling? Keep talking? Okay. I need you to keep talking. Should I move the microphone closer?
Check 1, 2, your mother twice. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2, testing, testing. How'd you get that?
Are you getting a nice summer cold or is it just allergies?
Allergies, I was around cats all day.
The
The photo shoot had all these kittens.
Okay, we're rolling. That means I have to officially slate it at the top. I don't even know what today is. July 6th, right? Yes. Mm-hmm. July 6th, 1995. Speaking with... Now you have to pronounce your name because I've heard it here at Alanis and Alanis, and I'm not sure which. So you say your name.
It's Alanis Morissette.
It is Alanis. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure. For Westwood One. Okay, now the official stuff's over. I know you've now been talking about this a lot, but I have a question for you about the questions that people are asking you. Because normally when people are, it seems like a lot of times people ask people, oh, are these songs about you? Or, is this autobiographical or is it not? And it seems like with you, people are just jumping in and going, okay, well, who's, what guy did you write this about? They're just assuming automatically that it is you.
Yeah.
And so you're not having to go through that. Oh, is it or is it not?
Some people ask, but I think the record's so self-explanatory that it's sort of obvious that it's autobiographical.
Yeah. No, wait, are any of the songs written about relationships that you observed rather than ones that you were in?
I think the only thing on the record that is any sort of creative writing is the last part of the hidden track at the end of the CD. I just sort of... The main part of the song is an actual experience, and then I went ahead and sort of burnt myself, which would have happened had I continued on the path that I was going in that house I was staying at. But other than that, it's all very personal and subconscious.
Yeah. So that track at the end of the CD, does it have a name?
It's called Your House.
Your House. Yeah. Yeah, listening to that one, I was like, oh, this one's kind of different from some of the other ones. Then you get more towards the end of the song, it's like, oh, okay. Wait, we're coming back to another one of these themes there, yeah. What, when you have was that a song that kind of came about at the last minute or something? Is that why it was on the end and you decided to do that a cappella or? Yeah,
it was the last song, and I just wanted to recreate the same emotion that I felt when I was actually in the guy's house, and I was in there legitimately. I didn't break in or anything, but the feeling that I felt when I was in his house is the same feeling I feel when I listen back to that song now.
Yeah, because I was listening and I'm thinking, wait, was she there when she wasn't supposed to be? Was she being kind of a stalker in someone's house or something?
No.
Yeah. So you went over to Europe already, right? For
showcase tour over there.
Yeah. But what's the reaction been over there?
It's been great. Europe was pretty amazing. I love it over there, and my band members and I just had a great time.
So you actually played shows. You weren't just doing press or what?
We did showcases.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to go back in September for close to a month and play shows again.
Yeah. Were you mostly in English-speaking countries, or were you?
We were in we were in Germany, and we were in Amsterdam, and but pretty much, most of them were English-speaking, yeah.
I was gonna say, are they getting the full effect, kind of?
Actually, the people in the German Warner Brothers office printed up a booklet with the translation. I'm not sure how well it translates, but yeah, they felt that it would be worth it to do that.
Yeah, I always wonder about that when people translate things. It's like because you want someone that maybe that knows you that knows German and English, say, to look at and say,
right.
Okay, this is what you meant. And everybody's saying, wait a minute, they didn't get this part.
Right.
Yeah, it might be kind of scary thinking of that's like letting someone else write your lyrics for
yeah. I'm not really worried though. I think most people, if they're compelled to feel any sort of emotion by listening to it musically, that they'll figure out what it means eventually, even if it means by asking someone else to translate it for them.
Now, the songs on Jagged Little Pill, are they, if I were to listen to the two albums that came out previously in Canada, is there a big difference?
Yeah.
In the music? Yeah. But how,
yeah.
In what way? Yeah.
I think I wasn't as secure and confident back then to be as unadulterated and forthright as I was on this record. And I was also working in an environment that was very stifling and controlling and difficult for me to feel safe enough to be this naked. And I mean, there's a certain thread of continuity through it, maybe vocally here and there. And I was also younger, and I didn't necessarily have my subconscious as full as it is now. And a lot of what I wrote about on this record were things that I was actually going through at that time. And because I was immersed in it, I don't think I was prepared to write about it. And it was a lot safer to do what I was doing back then.
So was it, were a lot of things that you wrote about on this record, or were they things that happened to you while you still lived in Canada and you wrote about them after you had moved away and really distanced yourself from it?
Some of it was, and some of it was coming to terms with that, and then others were things that I was actually going through after I moved here.
Yeah. Did you move away from your parents when you were pretty young then?
I started traveling when I was about 10, and my parents really trusted me, and they sort of... they because they trusted me, I felt empowered to go out and be independent. And I officially moved out when I moved to Toronto on my own for a couple of years when I was 18. And just spent time alone and got out of that sort of sheltered environment so that I could grow and just be introspective and go through whatever it is you go through when you have no distractions or things to cling to. And then I moved to LA.
So what were you doing at the time? Because the Nickelodeon TV show was over by then, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I was I signed a publishing deal with MCA Publishing when I was 14. So I had those 2 records out and promoted them and made videos for them in Canada, and after that I moved to Toronto just to write on my own and sort of test out the waters and get away from the environment that I had been in, and just to a certain extent start as fresh as I could. And I actually became somewhat disheartened with the whole collaborative process because I didn't feel that anybody that I was working with truly understood who I was as an artist or as a person for that matter. So although it was disheartening, though, I knew that there was... I knew what could be, as far as a synergy with someone that you're writing with, and that a lot of times a song can become greater than the sum of its parts. And I sort of held on to that. And when I came to Los Angeles and met Glenn Ballard, that actually happened.
So were you actually trying to write with band members or something in Toronto, or?
Yeah, I wrote with close to 100 people in about 2.5 years, and I just spent every day and every night writing and demoing and basically writing songs that had maybe 2% of my true self in it. But I just vividly remember writing a lot of songs and trying to tap into what I've now learned to tap into naturally, trying to tap into it back then, and looking up and just having these people shaking their heads saying, you can't write that, and you really shouldn't do that, and I'm sure your publishing company wouldn't expect that of you. And it's like, well, I have to go now. I'm going to go home. So I started writing alone quite a bit. But then, like I said, once I came to Los Angeles, after having met Glenn and feeling his openness and his intellectual ability and his kindness, it's like this environment that was very safe, very conducive to me being free, lyrically and musically.
Yeah, it doesn't say in your later notes he's like your spiritual brother or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah, he is, and it's just we're still overwhelmed with how this record actually came together. A lot of the songs were written, in 15 minutes to 45 minutes, just music and lyrics at the same time. And I would just walk into the booth right next to the studio that we wrote it in and sing it, and it was a 1 or 2 take vocal, and essentially the record's about 80% of the demos. And there's something to be said for the accelerated pace in which we did it. It was just probably one of the most spiritual events that have ever happened in my life, and just so subconscious. Like, a lot of times I'd listen to the lyrics and the songs the next day and not even remember having written any of it. And I just was humbled by the whole thing because of the fact that, my analytical nature immediately wanted to pick it apart and figure out how it happened and why it was happening. And I just reached a point where I knew I couldn't do that. And it's a very peaceful place to be. It's humbling.
So it kind of hit you when you sat down and you thought, okay, I have to write these lyrics down for to be included in the liner notes or the publishing company or whatever, To actually look at them on a piece of paper, or... I
guess there was a little bit of trepidation for maybe about a week when I was talking to Glenn about it, and I guess the alternative was to sort of censor some of it or rewrite it and have these sort of half-truths and non-truths. And I just vowed to myself that I would never do that ever again. So although I'm naked and pretty much exposed and vulnerable in it, there's a certain amount of, ironically enough, there's a certain amount of peace that I get from that, and it empowers me in many ways.
And I was wondering, is it, as people say, or isn't it scary to expose yourself that way or something? And you're thinking of, okay, to this whole general public that you don't know.
Right.
And I kind of think it the other way. You know how when you're, at least, I don't know, it's like for you performing now, but when I was a kid, so, I was doing plays in school.
Mm-hmm.
It was easier in a big audience that you couldn't see their faces, but if there was like when you had to audition and there were just like 7 people in front, you could see all their faces, and that was scarier. I was thinking, isn't that the same, like, when you know the people that are like giving this to people that you know to listen to?
Right.
Is that scarier than like just giving it to people you don't even know?
It is. You're right. Good call. I think the most difficult part for me was thinking that some of the lyrics that were so honest that a few people hearing it might actually get hurt by it. But again, I had to think about that and say that this was something that I really had to release for my peace of mind. And a lot of the reasons why this anger or this confusion or any of the emotion for that matter is so overt is because a lot of it was repressed for so long. And if finally I had this opportunity to release all of it, and I again denied myself of that and only allowed 60% of it to come out, then again I'd just sort of be perpetuating my, just holding everything back again. And at some point I was going to explode or implode. And I'm glad I did it musically rather than, just completely freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah, if you were holding that stuff inside.
Mm-hmm.
It mentioned something in the Billboard story, I think, about something when you did kind of hit a wall when you were like 16 or something. Is that what you said?
Yeah, I've hit a few of those. I'd be lying if I said I didn't hit them anymore because now I've gotten them out in music. I mean, I think it takes a long time to change that whole passive-aggressive approach, and although I've gone to either ends of the spectrum, I'd like to think that at some point I can find a middle ground.
Did you, what was this one called? Perfect. And that song, was that, that's one where I wasn't sure. I thought, okay, is she thinking about that thing of being the kid and having that pressure on you to be like that? I immediately think of like the Little League, the kids playing Little League baseball with their parents are so much more into it than them or something.
Right.
Or I thought, or was that something more you were observing, because probably, at least on the TV show, and then other times you had a chance to see lots of kids that were in situations where they were put somewhere beyond where their years they should have been or something.
Right. I think it's a combination of everything. Some of it was my own experience with my family and society in general. Some of it was also just being immersed in the record industry at such a young age, and the entertainment industry for that matter. And I worked with a lot of younger people, obviously when I was younger, and I was just, I was very much an observer when I was younger, and I would just watch how people would relate to these children and the pressure that they would put on it. And to this day, I mean, I just watch it, and it's not my place to say anything to them, but it just really affects me and bothers me very much. And I wanted to write about it, and I came to terms with a lot of that whole sort of premise when I wrote the song.
Yeah. Did you? How did you end up getting into performing from the? At the beginning, from being a little teeny kid, were you taking piano lessons or doing recitals or something? Or?
Yeah, I've been playing piano since I was 6, and dancing since I was 7, and just really loved music and the whole entertainment part of it. And it wasn't until, the last few years that I allowed the sort of intellectual, cerebral, emotional part of me to merge with the musical, entertaining part of me, and I finally feel that they're all sort of swimming nicely in the same pool, because there were definitely both sides that I kept sort of separate.
Yeah. So the music before, were you thinking of more of as this is a way to entertain people rather than to
connect with them or
whatever the word might be?
Exactly. I saw that more as an entertainment thing.
Were you doing sort of dancey pop music or
pretty
something?
much?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time imagining it.
I was always a really great dancer, and I just felt that I owed it to myself to use it, and I was not ready to be this forthright. I mean, not only was I not ready to be this forthright and honest musically, but I was not ready to be that personally either. You know, it's like I was far too insecure to be that naked.
Yeah. So when you moved here, I think I read one thing that said that you had done kind of the bar band thing for a little while or something, or were you like...
Not here.
Not here, that was before you moved here?
Yeah, when I was 15, I was in a bar band for a couple of years.
It's like singing cover song type of things, or the whole bit?
It was actually quite heavy rock at the time, so there was always that part of me that was always it's funny because subconsciously I always knew what I wanted, and I guess I had faith that at some point I'd find it and I'd reach it and I'd be at that place. And that's why in so many ways I feel like this is my debut record.
Yeah. Were there particular song, you know, I know that a lot of times what you get to sing in cover bands are real top 40s are things that probably aren't saying a whole lot anyway, but were there were there songs then when you thought of that, you know, that you still remember, where you thought, I wish I wrote that, or I wish I could write something like that? I know I feel something like that, but I can't write that.
I don't think lyrically. I guess I always thought that I could, you know. I think what I wanted to do was there's a certain style that I wanted, and I'd hear it in other people's music, and I just think, you know, at some point I'd like to be as free as they are so that I can find my own place, my own style, you know. Not necessarily their style per se, but the fact that they were expressing themselves in a way that was succinctly theirs, you know.
Yeah. Or did you find that was mostly men, the male singers?
It was both.
Or both?
Both women and men.
Because it's funny, a lot of women I'll talk to will say, you know, they'll start naming people, and there won't be like a single woman among the people that they'll say, you know, not necessarily that they wanted to sound like or anything, but like you're saying that you know, had that style of their own.
Mm-hmm.
So few people will mention women, or sometimes I think maybe the women are afraid to mention that they had their female role models or something.
Yeah. You know, I just loved listening to music where people were writing from a very visceral place. You know, there's that certain intangibility to the way that I like to think that I write now. You know, it's just very free and subconscious, and it comes out, and you can tell what place people tapped into when they wrote it.
Yeah, and it's like it's almost a trade-off. It's almost easier for you to write that way, probably because it's home. But the hard part is like
the emotional,
restraining yourself afterwards from,
right,
from editing yourself, or
right. I guess it's easier once the flow starts coming, and difficult in an emotional, sort of vulnerable way. You know, it's like hooking yourself up to an IV unit. I liken it to that.
Yeah, where you control the
right.
the dosage.
Yeah, I mean, there were some times where Glenn and I, at the end of the day, or sometimes early in the morning when we were done at 4 a.m, we'd just go home and be completely physically spent, you know, because although it's an accelerated pace, it's so concentrated and intense.
Yeah. What length of a time period did you record the album over? Was it pretty pressed into a month or two?
If we were to put it all together, I mean, there were some points where I was in the midst of moving from Toronto to here, so I was going back and forth, but all together I'd say maybe 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah, which is probably good it was spread out. Then I was going to say, if you actually went in and did all this in 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, you would have just come out
dead.
Yeah, and completely I would think that everything else would seem surreal. I mean, you would come, because that would be so intense, you would come out and be like, everything would just look weird or something.
Well, that's how I felt on the weekends, and I just laugh about it now, because we'd be writing Monday, Tuesday, and into the week, and then as the weekend would approach, I'd actually get kind of nervous, because I knew that I'd be out of what I call the sanctuary. Like in the studio, it was so safe and so warm and so true. You know, there's something so beautiful and spiritual about it. And then going back out to the real world on the weekends, because we would take weekends off, it became somewhat of a scary thing for me for a while.
So what did you do to keep yourself occupied, or to keep your mind off of it?
Oh, I just tried to take care of myself, you know. I had moved to a new crazy city, and I was actually physically moving my stuff down from Toronto, and I just wanted to keep physically fit and try to get out there and meet some people, because, you know, a city is, as far as I'm concerned, what makes a city is the relationships you have in it, you know.
Yeah. Did you know many people here before you moved here?
I knew nobody. I knew my manager.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So, boy, and add that little scare factor into the whole mix.
Yeah. Yeah.
The when was the first time that you performed any of these songs live?
I did. It's very funny because the whole live process after this record was finished has been baptism by fire. Like, we initially set out to do some shows where these sort of inconspicuous places where nobody would come and we wouldn't advertise it, and it wound up not being like that at all. Like, we were going to initially invite some people out to a rehearsal, and it wound up being what felt like a real show. And it was like, okay, here's my first time playing for anybody, let alone a crowd, you know. And then we did a couple showcases that wound up turning out to be pretty, like, real full-fledged shows. So we never really practiced. I mean, we rehearsed in the rehearsal space, but again, it was very much baptism by fire, which has sort of been the way that I've lived my whole life. So it's sort of par for the course, really.
So who do you have playing with you in the live shows?
I have Taylor Hawkins on drums, and Nick Lashley and Jesse Tobias on guitars, and Chris Chaney on bass. And I actually auditioned a whole bunch of people, and just through word of mouth heard about these guys, and they wound up being, I'm just so lucky to have, you know, not only trusted my intuition, but to have them be not only great musicians, but good people, great spirits, good attitude, and very respectful, and they work their asses off, and I love them. They're my brothers.
So none of those are people that are on the
No.
album, though, right? So
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
new to that.
Probably the next one, though, they'll be on it. Yeah.
You're already working on songs for that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a constant process for you? Are you always writing?
It's hard not to write, really, because for me, writing is just a way of keeping my peace of mind. You know, I guess because of how honest these songs are, in so many ways, it's like a diary for me, and sometimes because of lack of friends around, or lack of, you know, the ability to communicate, or just being too damn vulnerable, I just, you know, the best way I've always been able to communicate is on paper. So that's how I write, and that's how I write to myself, whether it's a song or not.
Do some of these, or did some of these start off as not diary type things, but, you know, just written down in notebook, journal type of thing?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you keep one, like, near your bed or something?
Yeah, I keep them near my bed, in my car, and everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I always well, especially in LA, because people spend so much time in their car.
Right.
One of my favorite stories is Melissa Etheridge talking about, you know, songs coming to you in the car,
right,
and they're stuck, and, you know, she said it's one of the songs from the first album, and if I looked at it, I would remember which one.
Mm-hmm.
You probably could figure it out if you listen. But she said she was beating it out on the steering wheel, and this song, this sounded really good. And she came up with the song. She got home and tried to play it on the guitar and couldn't. So she turned the guitar over and
Cute.
and was hitting on the back of the guitar, and she still does it that way in concert. Whichever
Cool.
song it is. I can't remember if you ever
Cool.
see her doing that. And that's why, because she wrote it in the car. And well, that's one way of working.
It's cool. When it was coming out, it's really hard to stop the flow, you know?
Yeah. But what if you do, if you're like, you know, okay, fine if you're stuck in traffic, you're just sitting there, but what if you need to be concentrating on your driving, and you've got this song, like...
So many times I've been just gripping the steering wheel and driving, and just have a piece of paper on where my horn is, and just writing, sort of looking up and down. I've done that so much. Yeah, it'll be worth the crash.
Yeah, great. No, okay, you're supposed to pull over. Yeah, that's right up there with the women putting their lipstick on, I guess, but at least you're doing something more constructive.
Yes, I'm not worried about my lips. I'm worried about getting these thoughts out.
Yeah. So were there any of them that you looked at and said, this is too personal, it's not going on, or did you just say, okay, everything that I was going to put in a song I did?
Yeah. I think part of that has to do with the fact that truly I was so insulated. Like, I was in this very, you know, warm room with Glenn writing music, and I was writing the lyrics, and it was like, it's almost as though the outside world didn't exist, you know, and we barely had a record deal at that point, so it was truly just writing for the sake of the release, and for the sake of getting it out of our systems, and because at that point the momentum had been going so quickly, we literally couldn't stop, and we were addicted to it, you know. Like, he and I worked so hard, it was like if we stopped, we would die, you know. That's literally how intense it was at one point, and I didn't think about anybody hearing it, you know. It was like we were on a mission.
Or did you ever use that as to convince yourself to go ahead and put this one on tape? Because did you ever think, oh, well, no one's going to hear this anyway?
I didn't know. I mean, Glenn would every once in a while say, this is really great, And I'm just like, yeah, let's keep going. It's like I really didn't think about it. I knew that at some point I wanted to release it, and I knew that I felt that I had to release it. It's almost like I felt that by my being that introspective, that other people would be compelled to be introspective about their own lives too, and apparently that's what's happening.
Or are people coming up to you and pouring out stories of similar things to you, or writing? Are you starting to get letters already?
Yeah, just a lot of very emotional reactions, and that's beautiful for me. That's, even outside of music, there's nothing more exciting for me than seeing someone growing or figuring things out or communicating, and the fact that this record is prompting people to do that is just so satisfying for me.
Yeah. What about say among your friends, the people that you already knew, before they heard this and stuff? When they hear this, or that they start looking through the lyrics or something, do they say much to you, or do you notice that people you don't know are more shy about saying things to you about it? Or
I think across the board, people have just been really honest about how they feel about it. My friends who know me very well just they're just so happy that I'm finally getting all of this out of my system.
Yeah. And then do most of them realize who these are about and the things and.
So yeah, for the most part.
Yeah. Or they realized that these were the same things that they were talking to you about, or were you completely holding all this stuff in, or were you not crying on your friends' shoulders about stuff, or?
I didn't really. I never wanted to be overly dependent upon anyone, and sometimes that was at my own expense. A lot of times, actually. So some really, really close friends knew certain things that I was going through, but I was always pretty, guarded. And it wasn't, I was a pretty gregarious, kind of outgoing person, and that's why a lot of people, particularly in Canada, are sort of shocked in many ways by how, how this sort of gamut of emotions that I run through on this record, because I never really showed any other than just being outgoing and, bubbly, and I think it was for that reason that a lot of these came out the way they did.
Yeah. What about your parents? What was their reaction?
They love it. They're so happy. Again, because if anyone knows me pretty well, it's my parents, and they couldn't be prouder right now. They're just like, they understand. They're pretty open-minded, smart people, so I had reason to believe they'd understand it. They've always been really open to me being my own person, and they're happy that I've opened up this way.
What about, you have a twin brother?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about him?
Well, you always hear so many things about the twins and their similar feelings, or things that twins are separated. You hear a lot about that, and they'll say that they end up doing the same career, or they have the same thing, or whatever. And obviously, you aren't separated from your brother, right? But is he in a performing type of career at all? Is he completely different?
No, we've always been really different. He is the kind of guy, however, that when he sets his mind to something, he always succeeds at it. He's that kind of person. He's very confident, and he's probably one of the most spiritual persons that I know, and we're very connected in that way. And he's also very musical, but he's more of an introverted musical person. I don't think that he necessarily wants to share it with the world, but he's great. He's one of my best friends.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So was he one of the first people that you sent when you had some of these songs on tape finally, and did you to ship it off to your brother right away?
Definitely. Yeah.
And say, what do you think? I mean, did that make you nervous? Like, you're thinking, what is he gonna think? I would think maybe you wouldn't care what everyone else thought, but maybe my brother.
You know what? It's. I guess before I even sent it to him, I knew he would like it, because he and I are cerebrally connected in such a way that I knew immediately that he'd understand. So I never really even questioned whether he'd like it or not.
Yeah. Has he been to one of the live shows yet?
No, but I'm going to Vancouver, and we're playing there, and he's coming. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
How about your parents? Have they been to one of the live shows yet?
Yeah, they came to a couple of them, and they're really happy. I mean, when I left home, I was I was still doing a very different style of music, so that pretty much was the last thing they saw of me. And when I came back, I was doing this, and they were pretty blown away.
So you've kind of had a real different kind of history than a lot of people I talk to, and you know, when they have their first album out, or whether it be a solo person or a band or whatever, where everyone's gone through this whole thing of the day jobs that they did and this, that, and everything, and it's kind of like you've kind of been performing since, with, you know, since you were so little, and you didn't have to go through this, you know, any fast food restaurants or movie theaters.
Yeah, it's all, you know, it's all, I guess it's all relative. It's just been doing it since I was really little, so I knew that's what I wanted to do, and it was a musical thing, you know. I think I was lucky too, because I was in high school when a lot of it started succeeding in Canada, so I just went through different things.
Yeah. That's right, you were in high school when both of those albums came out?
Yeah.
Did that, now, how did those do in Canada? Because I don't think, nothing of it was ever released down here, right?
No, it was Canadian. The first one went platinum, and the second one was almost gold. And I had a record out when I was 10 that I just sort of released independently on my own label that, you know, I just did on my own, so it wasn't, I don't know if anybody bought that one, nor should they have.
Wait, no, was that the one that have Fate in the title or something? They read Fate Stay With Me? Is that the one? Was it just a single, or was it a whole album they did?
Well, I had written enough for a record, for a whole album, but I just released a single with a B-side on it, and that was the first song I ever wrote.
Yeah. Do you remember it? Still? Yeah. Is it real funny for you to think of it now? Or, I mean...
in retrospect, I just think it's so odd that I was doing that when I was 10 years old, but at the time I knew, you know, it was I didn't know any different, you know. I was like, it's what I sort of thought I should be doing, you know. I felt like that was what I was meant to do, and it's only now that I look back and I just realize how odd it was that I was 10 years old and doing that.
But not really. I mean, if you've been playing piano already for 4 years, right?
Right.
And you would think, well, what else can I do but
write
my own songs to sing, right? I mean, I assume you wrote them on the piano, right?
Yeah.
Do you still tend to write that way on piano?
Guitar more now. I'm sort of obsessed with playing the guitar right now. I just want to get better as a musician, because right now I'm not the greatest player in the world, but, you know, over the next few years I like to think I'll just get better and better.
Yeah, because you're on the album, your only credits are harmonica,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I let the, you know, guitarists that have been doing it forever do it, because I wouldn't have been right on the record.
Yeah. When did you start trying to learn guitar?
Over the last 2 years, just subtly, and lately just really concentrated and spent a lot of time, a few hours a day playing.
Yeah. Is it a lot harder to you than
piano?
Than piano,
or they're both.
Than singing.
Singing's always been really easy for me. Playing guitar and piano are way more of a challenge, and guitar is a pretty big challenge. It's bigger than I thought it would be, but I was always really afraid and intimidated by that instrument, you know. And just lately, I've been more open to trying things that have scared me in the past. There's a certain fearlessness that's come along with, I guess, getting older and spending a lot of time on my own and being honest not only with other people but with myself, you know, and just conquering certain fears that have held me back for a while.
Yeah. So are you taking official guitar lessons, or?
I'm teaching myself right now, and my guitarists in the band are very, very quick to teach me anything I want to ask.
Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that the things that you're saying about, you know, being afraid, maybe of learning guitar before, whatever it is, that maybe this whole thing is translating into so many other things, like getting over your fear of putting all that stuff down on paper.
Yeah.
Or is it just making you all the time think, if it's like getting over one big hurdle and thinking, now I'll attempt anything, or
that, and just, you know, I think the reason why everyone's on this earth is to evolve. You know, you go through certain things, and you go through pain, and then you go through happinesses, and you just ride the roller coaster, and then try and transcend the difficult times as often as you can, and evolve and grow, and then you die. That's what I think life's about. It's just so many beautiful different things and scary things that you can experience. And as every year goes by, I just feel myself growing a lot. And part of that is, things like guitar, and other parts are personal things, and other parts are musical and personal and with relationships and etc.
And one expression I've seen, I've only read a couple of articles or reviews on the album, and they seem to like to bring up the thing, the old soul or things like that, or talk about you being like, old beyond your years or something, this type of phrase they use or something. Is that something that, have you felt that yourself? I mean, because I can remember when I was 12 or 13 or something, that I felt like I was a lot older than the kids that were my age.
Yeah.
I mean, did you always feel that way?
Always. I felt actually isolated for a long time because of it, and it's only lately that I've sort of reveled in that isolation. And oddly enough, with this record, the fact that so many people are responding to it makes me feel less alone in my revelations and thoughts. The fact that so many people are understanding means that there are a lot of people out there that get it, and that's comforting in many ways.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's odd to a lot of people who are I've got to imagine that a lot of people are ranging in age from 16 to 56.
They are.
Or whatever,
Yeah, it's sort of there's a lot of different age groups that are responding.
Because I would have never been able to guess your age, but because I had the advanced cassette and had no bio info or nothing for weeks after I had that, and I was listening, and I would have I wouldn't have been able to tell how old you were. I thought, oh, she's probably around my age. I'm 30. And I was thinking, okay,
right.
Been through enough of those relationships. You get to a point, then you can write about it. And I was, and when I read, your bio comes up and says you were 20, and I was going, okay, God, I cannot imagine. A, having been through all that stuff before I was 20, and B, writing about it.
Yeah. I guess what it was is that I dove into an adult world at the time that I was, really little. Like, I spent a lot of time with people that were adults and sustained a lot of these friendships for a long time. And I think that, that's partly why I guess I had gone through a lot for my age, and also being immersed in the record industry and dealing on a level that, with all these adults and having to learn quickly how to sort of protect myself and become independent at an early age had a lot to do with it. And I think a lot of people, the reason why people are the way they are, a lot of it has to do with your environment, your upbringing, and a lot of it just has to do with your nature, the spirit that is put into you when you're born.
Yeah. It was kind of, and I just remember a lot of times too when you're like that, when you're like in your early teens especially, and people are always telling me I was too serious or something. Did you get that a lot? Like you're too,
I got the opposite. You're too crazy. No, I was pretty gregarious and obnoxious, and I think that's what led to a lot of people misunderstanding me as a person, because I just came across as just very outgoing and crazy and really obnoxious. But the people that knew me really well knew that there was very much another side.
Yeah. Oh, so you were on the opposite side, where you were this real outgoing person, but they were probably only seeing a surface thing, and people never suspected the deeper side or something. And I was kind of quiet, and people would it's the same thing, but they still think people. It's funny how
it is funny. But I in many ways I felt responsible for it. I was the one that was giving this wrong impression to them. And then at the same time they weren't delving further to see if there was anything there. So no one can really be blamed in that situation. It's just circumstance. And then when you get older, you're able to show more sides of yourself because you become more confident, Yeah.
And then do you remember, were you just really amazed when you started finding other people that were like you, that you didn't realize that deeper side of them, and it was like then you realized that you weren't seeing through that other part either, and then you start finding people.
Yeah, it's also, I guess because I'm so young, I relate to a lot of my most painful times were in high school, and of course there's going to be pain in high school. You're young and you're insecure, for crying out loud. Who isn't in high school, So my 20s have been the best years of my life. Yes.
That 1 year. So far.
Yeah.
You better watch. There's people are going to start asking you, are you sure you're not this isn't like another life, that you haven't been reincarnated or something.
Yeah, a few people have asked that.
Do people do ask you that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess, yeah, some people, well, it's just they don't want to believe that someone your age can express these feelings that they've probably been trying to express for 40 years or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah. Do you, did you a lot of times spend, as a teenager, well, but besides for the ones you had to because of your work or whatever, were your friends a lot of times older than you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of had two different, sort of where the dualities in me started to arise, I think, when I was younger, is that I spent a lot of time with people my age just for that youthful, exuberant kind of spirit, you know. And then I spent an equally large amount of time with adults and talking to them on a real intellectual, cerebral sort of level. And unfortunately, I think the part that was the most difficult for me was just the fact that there was no one person that I could get everything from, as far as a friend or a boyfriend or, you know, even a family member or anything. It was like, I think there was such a separation between the two parts of me, and I was just, even a little bit today, I'm just really waiting for the time where they can merge and live happily together, you know? It's like they're two very separate people, really.
Yeah. You don't have to be doing love lines. I had questions about a couple of songs. I was kind of completely lost on one song. And you get that, even if you know that you don't get the exact feeling of it, like, you know, from listening to other people's songs where you tend to attach it to something that happened to yourself or whatever, and,
right.
And you kind of have an idea of, okay, this is what maybe happened with them. But Not the Doctor was one I was completely lost on.
Really?
I mean, I had these ideas.
That's good.
But these ideas were like way out there, especially with the visiting hours thing. Like really threw me. So I was kind of like, this one's kind of weird. Okay, did she have a boyfriend in a mental institution?
Some of them should be. No, I'm kidding.
But is there anything you want to say about that song, or would you rather not talk about this?
No. No, it's, I didn't have a boyfriend in a mental institution. I just wound up being in a lot of relationships where I felt they were overly dependent on me, and for a long time my role was to be the peacemaker and to be the advice giver and to be the mother and the nurturer to a lot of people, and I'd wind up giving them all my energy and my time and my love, and I just felt not only was I not getting it back, but I was just, you know, giving it all out, and I just felt really spent with a lot of the relationships that were one-sided or one way. And it became very frustrating for me, and I got it out in that song.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you're just not, it's so, yeah, okay, so that makes sense. This is part about being the bandage and everything, yeah.
Right.
Well, but what's funny about that, well, one thing that I've noticed is they're the ones that always want you to be the mother. Mm-hmm. That happens a lot. But then the same person will turn around and all of a sudden wants you to be like a little sister.
Right.
That's the one I could never figure out. You know, like,
I know.
Okay, but it's that two-sided part that you were just talking about. Actually,
right.
But then you feel like that sometimes, maybe.
Right. I mean, I just don't. I've reached a point now, after having gone through a lot of what I write about, that, you know, I don't depend on anyone to give me things that I should be giving myself. So I like to think that I'm fully capable of being in an interdependent kind of relationship where I give and I receive, and it's not, my happiness is not in someone else's hands.
Right, and the same is true for them, hopefully.
Right, hopefully. Yeah. See, that's the ultimate healthy relationship that I'd be interested in.
Yeah. I can't wait to surprise him with that. Okay, we can move you down the hall to a different studio.
All right, I'm going to use the bathroom.
Yeah, I'll show you where